Hi, welcome to Preps Plus Podcast, episode 53. I'm Josh Hart, sports editor here at the Daily News. I'm here with Preps reporter Jason Leskiw.
Aim your headlights, please. Real easy.
Outside of that, we're here to talk about prep sports today. You sat down with, at the end of this, Audrey Adams out at Woodland. What did you guys talk about?
We talked about being a foreign exchange student down south of the border in Brazil, and also her senior season.
Yeah, she's certainly had an interesting journey, and Woodland's looking a lot better. With her back in the lineup, I think she missed a couple games earlier this month, and so having her back in has really kind of put Woodland in a decent position after starting 0-3. And while we're on that, we're going to break down some of the early playoff races here, and we'll start with the GSHL 2A girls because it's kind of interesting. Outside of Washougal, 7-0 at the top, you have 3 teams with 3 losses and another 2 with 4 losses. So things are going to get really interesting. You have Ridgefield, Long, Woodland, Columbia River, and Hawkinson all battling for, an extra 3 playoff spots outside of Washougal. So how do you see that envisioning? Who's the favorites? Is there a favorite to come out of that?
I don't think there is a favorite. I think it's going to be, one of those situations, one of those, you've heard this before and you'll hear it again, that it's going to come down to who plays the best on any given night. And, there's real parity. It's like you were saying earlier, it's not just that league, but it's definitely highlighted, I think, a little bit in the 2A where, there's always been 1 or 2 teams, it seems like, that are dominant, and then you have that second tier. This year you have 1 team that has been dominant, and then a second tier of 3 or 4 teams.
Right, and I don't think I've seen a race this crowded, since I've been here. I mean, Long lost by 20 last night to Hawkinson, and you're like, it makes you scratch your head, like, what happened there? But it goes to show, really, on any given night, these teams can win, and so you come down to it, and you're going, well, I could envision any 3 of those 5 teams getting into the playoffs.
Right, and on the RA Long thing, it's just Hawkinson had, the most outrageous 3-point shooting night that they'll ever have.
Right,
so,
and I think they had a huge one in an overtime. RA Long ended up winning, I think, in overtime or at near the end of the game. The first time around, and I think they had like 8 or 9 3-pointers in that one too.
They had 8 from 1 girl.
So it's going to be a really interesting. I personally think Woodland is the most talented team out of that bunch. I think they have the highest potential, and I think they have the most experience out of that group of just being there. They've worked along. It's been a couple of years that we've been saying, hey, Woodland's kind of coming along here.
Right.
And they felt like this was really their year, and then they get off to 0-3 hole, and they're scratching their heads going, well, what's happening here?
Right.
They're right back in the thick of it at 3-3, so it's going to be interesting. Basically, you don't want Washougal on the schedule down the stretch, and you hope that the girls bring it. And I think they have. If you get into districts, I think you have a good chance of getting into state because WF West, Black Hills are not as strong as they were in past years. They're still really good teams, along with Tumwater really taking another step forward this year.
Right.
So you have some really good teams up north. But I think the end of this league season and the district's going to be really interesting in the GSHL 2A for the girls. Let's quickly touch on the boys' side. That's right now you got River at the top, and based on the way they're playing, I think they're going to stay there. I think their only losses are to Post Falls and to Skyview, so 2 really good upper division teams from around the region. But then Ridgefield's win over Morris the other day in overtime has them tied at 4-2 in second place. Then you got 3 teams tied at 2 and 4. So I think the main note out of this is Mark Morris's league title streak does appear to be coming to an end.
Yeah.
And it's an incredible run to go 18 straight, but you've kind of seen this coming of River, really testing Morris, and I mean, never say never with the Morris squad.
Right.
Last year similar things happened with them they have a game next week, and they they could pull away and win that. They've had stretches where they've played really well this year.
Yeah, and those are that matchup, especially last year, was probably the most exciting matchup of the year. I think that Morris took a tough loss early in the year down in Vancouver, but then come up here. I think it was a 2-point win. I think it was a buzzer beater from Tyler Berger, if I remember right. And then ssimilar situation up in Olympia in the district championship game. So no, that's a matchup that it hasn't gotten much better over the years.
Right. And what's interesting I find about that league is the three coaches atop the league there, Long, Backamus, and Buffum. Man, that's some high quality coaches. And I think you've seen kind of separate from the rest of the pack just on how talented and experienced those coaches are. I mean, what Buffum has done with that Ridgefield group the past few years has really been phenomenal stuff. So, that's an interesting league there. And in the 3A, it's all pretty simple. Kelso they've got a 2-game lead in the boys. Atop that, I don't foresee them losing it, so it'll be their first outright league title since '93. But everyone's gunning for them, and they played close games against Evergreen and Prairie and Mountain View can play really well on any given night. So we'll see where that goes. The 3A girls, Kelso has some work to do. They have a big game on Friday with Hudson's Bay to try to get a home playoff game, or at least a coin flip for a home playoff game. And so that's a big one for them. And Jennifer Hamilton really emphasized how important that is to have a home playoff game and not have to go on the road through that bi-district tournament. They benefited from it last year and got to the regional round. So that's a big one on Friday for them. Central 2B boys. I don't, as we've said all year, I don't think there's a dominant team out of the Central 2B boys this year. There's a lot of good ones.
There's really few weak teams. There's not anybody who could say, they're gonna.
There's a couple.
Okay,
Masura.
Okay, in the top 6. We'll
right. Yeah, I think they go 6 or 7 deep for sure. And I mean, even Wakakum and Alaska are not easy outs. So you're looking at it going, 8 deep. Alaska's 0-6, and I think they've had a few close games, and I think they're just a tough team to beat.
Well, and 9 teams get into district from that league.
Yeah.
So
is it still 9 or is it 8?
They just were recording Thursday. The bracket was released today, and 9 teams, and right now that would mean there's an 0-6 team making the district tournament.
Yeah. That's. I think they deserve it though with their track record in the postseason. Because you could argue that 7 teams from the Pacific League is still too much.
Yes.
But no, this league is really interesting. You have 4 teams still undefeated, and one of those we knew Toledo, Toutle, and Adna were at the top of the group there. Kalama's been a bit of a surprise, but I looked at their schedule earlier today. You got some tough teams. I think they have Adna, Toledo, Toutle, Napavine still on the list. This is going to be a heck of a final stretch for Wes Armstrong's guys.
Right.
Who do you have winning? Like I said, 4 undefeated teams, and Napavine, 1 loss. I wouldn't be shocked to see them steal a win or 2 in that grouping either.
Yeah, I like Adna a lot, but I like Toutle even more. They have one thing to me, and this doesn't always work this way, but Toutle has 2 guys who can really dominate, one area, one position group. You got Mike Adams, who can dominate the post. Logan Gravenhorst can dominate, at that guard position. And so you have one guy in each section of the floor that can do a lot of things. And so, and Toledo's got some of that, but I think dominant might be too strong a word for them. And so I think in Adna, similar situation, their scoring is fairly spread out. They're really fast. They can be physical when they need to, but I just like Toutle a lot right now.
Yeah, I think the loss to Moss, or the injury to Moss, really hurts them. You've seen it in Mike Adams scoring is that teams are just able to key in a little bit down low on him a little bit more. And I don't think last year, I think they had the shooting to overcome it. I think they're not as deep as last year. And I think down the stretch, I think that's going to be kind of the issue. But Swanson has always done a really good job of figuring out ways to overcome those issues. As we saw in last year's district tournament and the run they made to get a medal at state was impressive. I personally like Toledo atop this league. They won it last year. I think they have a lot of shooting, good ball handling, and they play really good defense. And especially they like to press you. They like to get in your face. I think that's going to wear teams down, and I think that's going to be the difference that puts them atop this league. But I'd be willing to wager that nobody finishes this league unscathed. I'd be willing to wager that the team that wins it has one loss.
Interesting.
Because not only do I see that, because you saw early in non-league, Tootle beat Toledo, Toledo beat Adna, Adna beat Tootle. So I can definitely see that happening. I can see Kalama stealing a game from somebody. I think Napavine's stealing a game from somebody. I think Napavine beat Adna I want to say they beat Adna in non-league play. And
that's sore between those two guys.
Yeah,
two squads.
So I have a feeling Napavine could steal one, and I wouldn't count out Winlock from stealing a game either. So
right.
And Alaska took Tootle Lake to the wire.
Yeah.
Somebody's stealing games from these guys, and I just don't see anybody coming out unscathed. I mean, some of these teams only have 4 or 5 games left, but there's some tough teams down the stretch, and I think it'll be really interesting. On the girls' side of that league, Wakaikam is going to run through everybody.
Yeah.
Especially they've already beaten Rainier, who has been this surprise team behind a couple of stellar freshmen. The Kaylee Schultz girl is just phenomenal. And so Rainier has already beaten Adna and Toledo, and they're looking like, that second place team out of that division. But, it's looking like Kalama's decent behind a Kerr, Rocha, and then you have Wakaikam and Toledo, I think, have really strong squads, but nobody's stopping Wakaikam this year. There's too many ball handlers, too many weapons. Jancy Mers has really developed as a post player, which I think has freed up LA Lights to be able to dominate. And there's probably only 1 or 2 teams in the state that can compete with them, and I think they're both on the east side. So one of those is Tri-Cities Prep with Talia-Vanna Olhoffen, who has she's on track for having 2,500 career points. She's a sophomore and she's phenomenal. So it'll be interesting to see where Wakaikam goes, but it's hard not to picture them in a title game this year. So that's the Central 2B girls. Quickly on the Pacific 2B girls, Iwako's on track to win its 5th straight league title. They do have Acosta again. They beat him the first time around. That's going to be an interesting one, but it's impressive what Iwako's done this year.
Yeah, I agree.
What Erica Glenn has emerged as a dominant force, and I think they have 4 or 5 girls all averaging 9.5 points a game.
Yeah. So
they're able to. The depth has just really shocked me. I did not expect that at all. On the boys' side, really interesting because you got 4 teams. We knew there was 4 good teams. Life Christian has emerged with. I think they had a transfer that got eligibility after the first run through league play. So they've emerged as the favorite at 11-2. Willapa Valley is 11-2 and looks pretty strong. Northwest Christian is 10-3, but I think they lost one of their key guys. They're starting to be sawed in some of the score lines recently. They're starting to slip back. And Ilwaco's senior heavy squad's 9-4. There's only 3 games left in that division. I guess they play 20 games in that division, or 18.
That's a lot. They got another 6 or 8 games. So.
That'll be interesting to see how that goes down the stretch. Do you think Life Christian holds on, or do you see Ilwaco or Northwest Christian?
And I don't know that there's many people who think otherwise that they're playing or coaching in that league. The interesting thing will be between Ilwaco and Willapa Valley. They play next week, and that'll decide a lot about how those standings finish and check out.
Right. Yeah, and what's going to be interesting when we talk about 4 solid teams, how they combine with the Central 2B. When you have 4 or 5 solid teams, you only I think get 6 to state, so 6 or 7. So it's going to be really interesting come district tournament because I think you have 9, 10 teams that could compete for it. So yeah, it's going to be a fun one I think down the stretch. As we head over to the Oregon, Clatskani's running away with that league title on the girls' side. What's interesting on the boys' side, though, is Clatskani boys recently lost to Warrenton. They had the upper hand after beating Rainier. They still technically have the upper hand, but they slipped back a little bit, and that's going to be another division where everybody has at least 1 loss. And Rainier Clatskani we get to see 2 more times. So do you give one of those teams an edge out of that Highway 30 rivalry of winning that league title?
No, it's crazy because they're 2 very similar teams, and I mean that third round of the Highway 30 matchup is going to be, I mean, kind of Captain Obvious here, but that's incredibly important.
It's going to be the regular season finale, and it's probably going to be for the league title.
Yeah. So there's no clear favorite. There's whoever out rebounds, whoever doesn't make the silly mistakes, and probably I think the key factor is who has the best shooting percentage in that game.
Yeah, and I think
who hits the free throws.
Right. Yeah, that was huge in that first game. There were some missed free throws that could have been costly for Clatskani and were costly for Rainier. Neither team shot free throws particularly well, but it was a crazy gym atmosphere and everything. And I'm glad the finale's in Clatskani because it's a little bit tighter packed and it just gets a little bit louder. I would just like to see, like they did in the first game, the refs swallow the whistle. I was so impressed with the refs early on in that first round. They just said, it's a rivalry game. There's only 2 of us in Oregon. We're not going to be able to catch everything with that extra third official like they have in Washington.
Right.
And we're just going to let them play. And it just made the game flow the way it should. And I really hope that continues in the other games. It can get chippy and physical, but I think that's what that game should be.
Yeah, absolutely. And the only thing that game is missing is a shot clock.
That's for sure. But we will get back to the land where there is a shot clock. Thanks, Washington. And we'll jump right into that interview with Audrey Adams, and we will see you next week.
All right, I'm here with Audrey Adams, guard, Woodland basketball. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun.
All right. You guys have had an interesting season. The whole league really is kind of, you got 3 or 4 teams at 3-3 in the league, and 4 playoff spots, if I understand it correct. And it's a crazy situation right now. What's the feeling like for you and the other girls?
The feeling, it's intense. So we know everyone's battling for the same few spots, and because we've had so many ups and downs, every team's kind of beating each other, and it's it doesn't happen that often, and especially with our team being in that position. I do love how everyone is working so much harder, and you see the effort just pick up more and more each day, and it just makes it so much fun.
Okay.
So it's a good season.
All right.
It'll be good.
Okay. And this is the second year in a row here that Woodland's kind of in this spot a little bit, at the 3, right in the middle of, 3 or 4 seed in the standings, and you weren't here. You were in Brazil.
No. Right.
And that's something interesting. Why don't you talk about kind of the experience with that and what you were able to do down there?
Yeah. Well, it was hard not being here because obviously I love my teams and it's been such a great town for me. But I definitely was excited about this experience because I decided kind of beginning of my sophomore year I wanted to study abroad. I met some really great foreign exchange students here, and so I decided I'm going to do it.
Right.
Shoot my shot. And then I decided to go to Brazil, kind of really take on a new lifestyle, kind of push my limits on that. And I ended up living off the coast on a little island in the northeastern part. And I lived in an amazing host family. I still talk to them all the time. I love them. I didn't speak Portuguese when I got there. So that was a big learning curve.
Right.
but it taught me so much, and I am so grateful for that experience.
Okay.
It's amazing.
How difficult was it to communicate? Hey, like, where's the bathroom? Like these basic things that you wouldn't think of normally.
Well, I'm really good at charades
Okay.
now.
Okay.
I wasn't at first.
All right.
But that was a big part. Thankfully, my host sister spoke English. My parents did not.
Okay.
So that was a big learning curve. And down there, they all study English from a very young age. So I was able to communicate with a lot of my friends.
Okay.
But they were oftentimes the ones that pushed me most to use my Portuguese.
Right.
So sometimes I just have to sit and think and be like, okay, learning curve. And the first few months are definitely, you say a lot of wrong things.
Okay.
And you kind of have to be okay with that failure of messing up a little bit, which helps a lot because I think it plays into our sports and just life experiences. You have to be okay with making mistakes and learning from them. So it was good.
Okay. Awesome. And what was the deal with the climate difference?
It was so hot.
Yeah. Pretty polar opposite from up here.
And I kind of like cold weather.
Okay.
I like wearing sweatshirts, and so I was dying the first few weeks. I couldn't wear pants at all. I had to be in shorts and t-shirts, like my running shoes. It was too hot.
Okay.
But I lived right on the ocean. I had a view of the beach, and so it was gorgeous. I would go there every weekend. So it became really fun. We had a pool in my apartment. So I made use of the weather eventually when I got used to it.
Did it cool down? It sounds like it probably cooled down at night with the.
Not really.
Oh, really?
No, we had about 80 degrees year round, and then in the winter, which is flipped, it was like a lot of thunderstorms, but it would still be like 70 degrees.
Right.
So it was just summer all the time. It was really fun though.
That sounds really fun.
I like that.
Okay.
I came around to it. So.
Okay. Was it how was the transition moving back up here?
I honestly feel like moving back home to Woodland was a lot harder than moving there to begin with. Because I was so ready for that experience. I was so excited. And it's not that I wasn't excited to come home and be with my family. Obviously, that's huge. I was bawling when I found them. But readjusting to the culture was a big shock. I mean, culture shock is a thing. And I think coming home is a lot harder than leaving.
Okay.
I've been used to, when I greet people, I hug, you kiss each cheek. Just the general norms are just so polar opposite, which is what drew me to Brazil. But it also, I think, is what made it so hard to switch back and forth.
Okay. All right. Did you go up to your teacher's first day of class and start?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it would happen. I would go up to a friend, I'd be like, oh, hug him, and I would go to do my normal greeting, and that's not okay here.
Right.
So it's like, they're like, what are you doing?
Right.
Like, ooh, forgot for a second.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And as far as the transitioning back into sports too, I mean, you're probably pretty active down there, but
more or less. I did a lot of different activities down there. I decided to move down there to really push my bounds, try new lifestyles, see what I can do, and learn the most I can. And so I didn't have school sport teams for me to play on.
Right.
And so I did like a competitive dance team with my host sister as my PE credit.
Okay.
We did a lot of Zumba classes with my mom, my host mom, spin classes. My main goal was to try everything.
Okay.
And just have a blast, but definitely active.
Okay.
Just a lot of different activities.
Okay. Nice. And what month was it? Did you move back up here?
I moved back here, I think in March.
Oh, okay.
Or end of March, beginning of April. Since I started spring quarter at Clark.
Okay. All right. And in the running start program, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's so great.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. No, everybody that's in that is so lucky.
Oh, yeah. I tell
really everybody
excited.
that. Yeah. I bet. I bet.
I know, and especially I want to go to college on the East Coast.
Okay.
And a lot of people there, they don't have dual enrollment. That's more just a Washington thing. And so I would love to talk about it.
Right.
I thought it was really cool. So
I bet. So you're sounds like you like kind of experimenting in different climates.
Yeah. Just mixing it up. I just want to get a grasp for everything I can. It's my goals. So
all right.
We'll move around a little bit.
All right. Transitioning back into basketball a little bit. You guys are at the final stretch of the regular season. 5 or so games left on the books.
We start playing teams again on Friday. So round 2.
Right.
It'll be good.
Yeah. Well, what's this point of the year like? I mean, I'm sure you guys are feeling a groove, but I'm also I'm guessing there's some fatigue, stress maybe. What's it like at this point of the year?
I love this point of the year because I feel like everyone kind of has a sense of who each other is, and we're all really different people. I mean, that's one of the great things about sports in high school is you meet so many people you wouldn't normally, and we all have great personalities. And I like this point of the season since we know each other better, gotten used to playing with each other. I feel like this is when we're in that groove, we found it, and all we want to do is work hard.
Okay.
And I feel like this is when teams really get to show what they're made of and what their true colors are.
Okay.
Because we're just ready to play.
Right.
And so there is fatigue. I know people get tired.
Mm-hmm.
Finals week is next week, so that's a lot for kids. But this is the fun time. This is when it's like, okay, we lost this game, now we're coming back, we're going to get them. And I feel like I get even more competitive. And,
okay.
I mean, everything just builds from here.
Okay.
So that's fun.
Nice. And one thing that I've found interesting about the Woodland girls here, you guys played Washougal probably closer than any other 2A. And the main thing, so I know you guys work the post a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You guys attack the post, whereas a lot of teams seem to back away from that for obvious reasons. Was that the key to that, to making that game so close?
I think I unfortunately wasn't able to be there for that game.
Was it an ankle injury, or were you?
We had two girls out. My mom got married, so that's
right.
where I was.
That's right. I remember talking to you.
Yeah, I had to be at my mom's wedding, which is fantastic.
Right.
Super blessed to be there. And one of our other starters, Kaya Olson, had an ankle injury, which set her out too. But I mean, like I said, our team is so strong, and we have such a great group of girls, and it goes more than just the first 5. It goes on and on and on. And I think that made a big difference in that game. And we do attack the post a lot. We have some really strong 6-foot girls. I'm not one of them, but we have some people who work hard every minute of the game. I know Peyton Foster scored so many. She's such an athlete. And I think it's just that desire that builds.
Right.
And we aren't afraid of those mistakes. We always push a little bit farther.
Yeah.
And I think that plays into us, putting it into the post, going for those boards. And it makes a difference.
Right.
So hopefully next time we see them,
different.
We can have all of us together and see what happens.
Right. And that's a good point. That's a good point. I had forgotten about that, even though I was that week I was talking with Coach Flanagan about that. And, with the full roster and such a tight game, you look at that and you wonder, okay, what happens in round 2?
You never know.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Nice.
Especially, I haven't played these girls since my sophomore year.
Right.
So I have a lot to say this game.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to it.
Nice. Is this that round 2 against Washougal the one game you really are excited to play, or is there another that you really are looking forward to?
I mean, I love basketball. This is my favorite sport of anything by far.
Okay.
So I mean, anytime I get to play, I am more than excited. Especially, I'm making up for 2 years here. But Washougal's been doing really good this year, and I think that definitely makes me more excited to play them.
Okay.
I love a good competition. I'm really competitive. I know my whole team is, so that I do find that really exciting. But, I mean, all these teams have something to show, so we'll take any one of them.
Right. There you go. Nice. Okay. And then final thoughts. I mean, this is kind of like you said. You weren't here last year for districts, and your senior year. How high up is postseason play on that to-do list?
It's pretty high.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a big goal, I'd say.
Okay.
Of course, I never liked the thought of missing a game. I feel like that experience holds a really high value for me, so I would never regret that experience. I'm so thankful for it. But coming back, I mean, this season's everything I got.
Right.
And I mean, a lot of us girls, we want it badly.
Okay.
So I know, especially, we'll bring that energy every game, and hopefully, knock on wood, we'll see where that gets us. But
all right.
Don't know yet.
All right. Nice. All right. Well,
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for joining me.
Of course.
I hope everybody enjoyed this.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Thank you.